Good morning. Good morning and welcome all to the Sunday morning service at the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship in Laguna Beach on this first Sunday of the new year. So happy New Year to all. My name is Pamela Flodman and I will be serving as your worship associate for today. Each Sunday, anywhere there is a service held in a Unitarian Universalist congregation, a chalice is lit. The flaming chalice is the symbol of our faith. So if you have joined us this morning by Zoom, I invite you to light a chalice within your home, as Dara lights the chalice for us here at UUFLB. Our chalice lighting words today are from Reverend Lois Van Leer. We light this chalice on the brink of a new year, letting go of what has been, open and hopeful for what may come, renewed, restored, ready to live life fully anew. May we move forward with intention. Today, we are continuing our series of hybrid worship services. For today's service, we have members and friends who have gathered in person at the fellowship building here in Laguna Beach, masked and physically distanced, as well as others who are joining us from remote locations by Zoom. The ability to be together in person and virtually has been one of the unexpected benefits of the pandemic. We are a strong, growing community with a reach far beyond the four walls of this building here in Laguna Beach. I would like to give a special welcome today to any visitors who are joining us either here in the sanctuary or virtually by Zoom. At UUFLB, we are a welcoming congregation. Whoever you are, whomever you love, no matter your age or your gender, your ancestral or ethnic background, your economic or immigration status, and whatever sincere questions you bring with you today, we welcome you to our community of mutual caring and serious intent to grow as spiritual and moral beings. And today, I would like to say a special thank you to our worship committee, to the board, and to the many individuals who keep everything running smoothly here at the fellowship each week. Candy, who prepares the building on Sunday mornings and makes sure there are candles and fresh coffee. Thank you. The audiovisual crew with Don working his magic as our Zoom tech, and Paul, who is overseeing the audiovisuals here in the sanctuary. And this week, I am also feeling especially grateful to our board, whose careful stewardship has put UUFLB in position to be able to consider engaging a part-time minister. And I have continuing gratitude for the worship committee, Rachel, Noreen, Dawn, and Kendra, for the work they do each and every month to ensure that we plan worship services which can engage us, uplift us, inspire us to make a difference in our world. So on the slide that Dawn will put up for us is a list of the upcoming services for the month of January. Next Sunday, on January 9th, our amazing, talented music director, Carole, will be leading our service. And the service will have a focus on inspiration that comes from music and from words. So I have gratitude for Carole for offering to put this service together for us. Music is an essential part of worship for me. So I'm looking forward to that service very much. Then on January 16th, we are fortunate that a favorite UUFLB guest speaker, Emmeline Cordingley, will be returning to UUFLB to lead our service. And the following Sunday on January 23rd, the social justice service will focus on the work of Laura's House in Aliso Viejo, which provides support and shelter to those who have experienced domestic violence. And Laura's House has a focus on inspiring hope and empowering change through education. Then at the end of the month, on January 30th, we are delighted that Reverend Raina Hamry will be returning to our pulpit. Many of you will remember Reverend Raina, who's a frequent and much appreciated guest minister who has spoken with us on a number of Sundays, both during the pandemic and prior to. So we look forward to seeing Reverend Raina again. Following today's service, I hope that you have time to stay for a bit and connect with each other here in the fellowship building and with our attendees on Zoom during the virtual cafe. And I know that the leaders on the board and on the worship committee will welcome the opportunity to hear your thoughts as we plan forward for the future. So for today, the first Sunday of the new year, our service is entitled, Be Who You Are. This service is based on a sermon that was written by Reverend Peter Friedrichs, who is the minister of the Unitarian Universalist Church of Delaware County. Reverend Friedrichs wrote a series of 3 sermons, which are a reflection on the words of Forrest Church. Forrest Church served as spiritual leader of All Souls Unitarian Universalist Church in New York City for nearly 30 years. And during his lifetime, he authored 20 books on topics ranging from American history to liberal religion and spirituality. Forrest Church wrote that he came to live by a mantra which served him well through difficult times. And I invite you to join me in reading these words from Forrest Church together as our centering thought this morning. If you are joining us from home, feel free to unmute yourselves as we join in reading the words of our centering thought together. Want what you have. Do
what you can.
Be
who you are.
Over the past 2 years, we have had 2 services focused on the first 2 parts of this mantra. And today we will focus on the 3rd part. Be who you are. It sounds simple and certainly a worthy goal for the new year. But sometimes being who you are can feel like swimming upstream against a strong current of expectations. Today, through the writings of Reverend Peter Friedrichs and the reflections of Reverend Forrest Church, we will explore how we can invest our lives and all that we do with sincerity, authenticity, and deep commitment. Our Unitarian Universalist faith calls us to be who we are. And in doing so, we offer to the world the greatest gift we can give. So welcome to all on this beautiful first Sunday of January 2022. It is good to be together this morning in all of the ways that we can join in worship. Our opening hymn this morning is number 1010, Oh, We Give Thanks. So we invite those of you who are attending by Zoom to sing out from home, even though you are muted. The words will be in the chat. And in the fellowship building, we may join in the music by humming or softly singing the words. It's number 1010 in the teal hymnal. I just realized I need to grab a teal hymnal for myself. Number 1010, Oh, We Give Thanks. So please enjoy in the music of our talented music director, Carole, as we give thanks together.
Good morning, Happy New Year to everyone. Please join me.
let us take a moment now to remind ourselves why we come together as a community. I invite you to read these words together when and if it feels right for you. If you wish, from home on Zoom, please unmute your microphone. It is powerful when we can join our voices together. The words of the unison affirmation, which capture this church's mission, will be on your screens. So please join me in reading.
Love is the spirit of this fellowship, and service is its law. This is our great covenant to dwell together in peace,
One
to
another.
seek truth in love, and to help one another.
We have come to a time in our service to briefly share the important events that have touched our lives in the past week. During this time of sharing our joys and concerns, we have paused the recording of the service. We will first invite the attendees who have joined us by Zoom. And it is as much a blessing to be able to give to each other in our support for our joys and our sorrows, but also to give in our financial support of the fellowship. It is as much a blessing to be able to give as it is to receive. So in this self-governing, self-sustaining community, we recognize it is our responsibility to do both well. So during this time of offering, we will be passing a basket within the fellowship, and then the information on your screen or in the email invitation which you received provides 2 additional ways in which you can give. Our fellowship depends on the love and the generous contributions from our members, and all of our gifts generously given are so appreciated and needed for this fellowship and for its continued good work in the world. Now, please stand if you're here in the fellowship and join us in singing words of sincere thanks to each other. We are a small group, but perhaps we can kind of make a circle and be able to face one another so that we're singing to each other. From you I receive, to you I give. Together we share, and from this we live.
From you I receive, to you I
Together we share, and from this we live. You I receive, to you I give. Together we share, and from this we live.
Now, please settle yourself comfortably in your chair. You may want to close your eyes. Place your feet on the floor. Feel a connection to the ground beneath you. Let your hands rest quietly. Breathe deeply. Allow your shoulders to relax. Follow your breath as you breathe in and breathe out. In and out. Our meditation this morning is from poet May Sarton. The name of the poem is Now I Become Myself. Following the words, we will share a few moments of silent meditation. So the words of poet May Sarton. Now I become myself. It's taken time, many years and places. I have been dissolved and shaken, worn other people's faces, run madly as if time were there, terribly old, crying a warning. Hurry, you will be dead before what? Before you reach the morning, or the end of the poem is clear, or love safe in the walled city. Now, to stand still, to be here, feel my own weight and density. The black shadow on the paper is my hand, the shadow of a word as thought shapes the shaper, falls heavy on the page, is heard. All fuses now, falls into place from wish to action, word to silence. My work, my love, my time, my face gathered into one intense gesture of growing like a plant. As slowly as the ripening fruit, fertile, detached, and always spent, falls, but does not exhaust the root. So all the poem is, can give, grows in me to become the song, made so and rooted by love. Now there is time, and time is young. Oh, in this single hour I live, all of myself, and do not move. I, the pursued who madly ran, stand still and stop the sun. As I mentioned earlier, our sermon this morning was written by the Reverend Peter Friedrichs, minister of the Unitarian Universalist Church of Delaware County. Reverend Friedrichs wrote, "As part of my seminary training, I spent a summer working as a hospital chaplain, assigned to the psychiatric floor. I found it to be deeply gratifying work, and I was able to build relationships with many of the patients. Some were long-term, and others had a quick turnaround. Some were what we called bouncers. These were people who would be admitted to the unit because of some behavioral issue. Oftentimes, they had simply gone off their meds and needed to be restabilized, treated, and released. But within a matter of days or weeks, they'd bounce back to the unit again. And in the course of my 8 weeks at the hospital, some patients came back several times. My favorite of these was Rose. Rose was a lovely woman who was about 80 years old, who lived with schizophrenia. And Rose would be brought into the unit very agitated and aggressive, but within a day or so, with proper care and medication, she'd be sweet as a peach. Rose and I had many long conversations about God and love and heaven, and she was rock solid in her Baptist faith. During one of our conversations, Rose expressed to me her concern about all the people at the unit who were interviewing and examining her. She was tired of being treated like a lab rat and told me she was afraid to talk to her doctors. I tried to reassure her that they were there to help her. And I suggested that she be honest with them in answering their questions. Just be yourself, I told her, and they'll take good care of you. Rose's response to my sage advice was a priceless gem that I will never forget. Be myself, she said. Of course I've got to be myself. Everybody else is already taken. So today is the third and final sermon in the series written by Peter Friedrichs to honor Reverend Forrest Church, the longtime pastor of All Souls UU Church in New York City for 30 years. In previous services, we explored the first two parts of the mantra, which Forrest Church claims served him well as he faced his death. Want what you have and do what you can. The third leg of this stool is the equally simple statement, be who you are. So let me first give you a short refresher on the first two parts of the mantra before we dive into the third. When Forrest Church urges us to want what we have, he is not telling us to settle, but he's reminding us that even when things look grim, there is much to be thankful for. He uses the metaphor of a window with many panes of glass, each pane representing one of the many aspects of our lives, our health, our job, our relationships. When one pane gets clouded over, he tells us, we must resist the urge to press our noses against that darkened pane to the exclusion of all others. Instead, we should step back to allow the light from all of the other panes to filter through. Forrest Church tells us to engage in thoughtful wishing rather than wishful thinking, and thus to be grateful for all the gifts of our lives. So that was the first part of the mantra. For the second part, to do what we can is to recognize both our own power and our own limitations. He writes, doing what you can means doing all you can, no more and no less. It's not just mucking by, but it's not trying to do more than you can do either. Not stretching yourself out so far that you can't help but force a failure. When we do what we can, we seek to achieve the significant goals that lie within our power. And while we may risk failure, we don't set ourselves up for certain defeat. And now we find ourselves face to face with Church's third admonition. Be who you are. This is, he admits, the hardest task of all. Simply put, he tells us, to be who you are is to not fake your existence. He writes that each of us is unique, with unique flaws and gifts. The world doesn't owe us a living. We owe the world a living, our very own. In his book, Love and Death, Forrest Church tells of the opportunity he had as the son of the US Senator Frank Church, the opportunity he had to enter politics while he was still working on his doctorate in theology. After running his father's presidential primary campaign in Nebraska, the son was ready to jump into the father's footsteps and run for public office himself. Fortunately, he listened to his father's advice to live his own life, not the life his father had led. And in doing so, writes the younger Church, I found my calling. I answered a call that was mine and not someone else's. He goes on to tell us, to envy another's skills, looks, or gifts rather than embracing your own nature and call is to fail in two respects. In trying unsuccessfully to be who we aren't, we fail to become who we are. Be who you are. As Rose pointed out, it's a rather inane concept. Of course you are who you are. You are who you are because everyone else is already taken. But if it's so simple, why do we spend so much of our lives trying to be who we're not? Trying to be like someone else, or trying to be the someone that someone else thinks or wants or makes us believe we should be? In the words of May Sarton's poem that we heard earlier, why do we spend so much of our lives dissolved and shaken, wearing other people's faces? To be who we are, who we were born to be, it's no easy task. Consider for a moment our childhood and how we learn most of what we know. Although our intellect develops the ability to discern and debate, our most basic form of learning is emulation, or to put it in its simplest terms, copying. Like a giant game of follow the leader, we grow up watching what others do and observing the outcomes. And if we like what we see, we try to do the same in hopes of gaining a similar result. From a very early age, we are wired to be like rather than to simply be. For some of us, this message was explicit. Why can't you be more like your brother, sister, cousin, fill in the blank? Our media convince us that to be accepted or happy or successful, we need to act in a certain way, drive a certain car. There's a reason that the Rolling Stones song Satisfaction is still growing strong, some 50 years after its release. It speaks in part to the futility of trying to be the person that someone else thinks we should be. And if I could sing, I would sing this verse for you from up here, but I'm just going to read it. Part of Satisfaction reads, when I'm watching my TV and that man comes on to tell me how white my shirts can be, I try and I try and I try and I try, but I can't get no satisfaction. Role models are valuable for us on both a societal and an individual level. They serve to inspire us and to motivate us to consider what is possible. And there are certain traits or aspects of others that we should try to emulate. I grew up when Superman and Batman were all the rage on TV, and now in movies, I guess. And who can argue that we shouldn't work for truth and justice? The danger comes, of course, when we try not just to be like our role models, but to become them. This is a recipe for disaster, a formula for failure. Neither you nor I will ever be more powerful than a locomotive or capable of leaping tall buildings in a single bound. There used to be a Gatorade commercial featuring Michael Jordan that exhorted us to be like Mike. But the truth is, when we try to be like Mike, we are destined for disappointment, especially if you kind of vertically challenged like I am. even if it's not superheroes or pro athletes we try to model ourselves after. In Forrest Church's case, he came close to making the mistake of trying to become like his father, the powerful Senator Frank Church of Idaho. Sometimes the influences that exert their power over us are more subtle. We grow up in a family of achievers, and although nothing is explicitly stated, we incorporate the message that much is expected of us. A parent's well-intentioned action sends a signal of what they hope for us, and we receive the gesture, consciously or subconsciously, as a mandate. If you hear things like, "You're so good in math, you should become a scientist," enough times as a child, you're likely to believe you should become a scientist and that your passion for dance or music or social work is misplaced. By the same token, if over and over again you hear the message, "You'll never amount to anything," that too can become a self-fulfilling prophecy. The forces that dictate against being who we are powerful and many. To be who we are can be like swimming upstream against a strong current of expectations and what I call the tyranny of the shoulds. And as if these forces aren't enough to defeat us, to be who we are is made all the more challenging by our lack of self-knowledge and self-awareness. Perhaps the greatest challenge to living up to Forrest Church's mandate, to be who you are, is discovering just who and what that is. Living in 21st century America, most of us are blessed with lives of comfort and relative ease, and so we can ask the questions, who am I? What do I want to be when I grow up? Many of us spend years of our lives to discover the answers, and in finding them, some of us follow our bliss, to use Joseph Campbell's term, while others, constrained by factors such as fear, family, finances, we remain living a life that is not our own until our days run out. In his book, Let Your Life Speak, author and educator Parker Palmer tells of the journey of discovering his true self. He calls the true self that self which wants nothing more or less than for us to be who we were created to be. To embark on this journey to discover ourselves takes courage and commitment. It is a risky business. It requires us to shed the masks and the costumes that populate our closets, to strip down to our naked selves and take a close look in the mirror. There we are called to see ourselves, and perhaps more challenging, to claim ourselves, warts and all. Palmer puts it this way: I know myself to be a person of weakness and strength, liability and giftedness, darkness and light. I now know that to be whole means to reject none of it, but to embrace all of it. So this might seem like terribly narcissistic navel gazing, but it is imperative that we discover our true selves and claim our wholeness in order to fulfill that other mandate we received from Forrest Church, the mandate to do what we can. When we fail to discover our true selves, when we cling to the persona that are nothing more than the masks we wear or the fulfillment of expectations of others, it would be easy to simply remain victims of our own condition. We would be disempowered puppets, actors playing out a script not of our making. We could blame a God or our parents or our partners for our circumstances. But when we do the hard work of discovering our true, authentic selves, of claiming our whole selves, we are called to live into those selves. Embracing one's wholeness, Parker Palmer writes, makes life more demanding, because once you do that, you must live your whole life. You must, in the words of Forrest Church, be who you are. The good news is that it's never too late. It is never too late to start the journey of self-discovery, of shedding the skin that we've worn since our birth that has, maybe like an ill-fitting suit, never felt quite right. The poet May Sarton is a testament to this fact. When she wrote the words we heard earlier, "Now there is time and time is young," when she wrote those words, she was 83 years old. It was at this age that she discovered her true self and finally felt her own weight and density. To be who we are is to offer to the world the greatest gift we can give, to invest our lives and all that we do with sincerity, authenticity, and deep commitment. To invest our lives with all of these will lead us into relationships with other authentic selves. And in entering into those relationships that are sacred in the true meaning of the word, we cannot help but bring our collective power to bear against the forces of justice, hatred, and oppression. Our collective wholeness will, by definition, heal the world. So now, please join in singing our closing hymn. This morning, we've chosen closing hymn number 1051. We are. The words are in the chat. And please join Carole by humming or singing the words to this hymn that speaks to our potentialities.
Please join me.
Now Now is the time for us to extinguish the chalice here at the fellowship and within our homes. We extinguish the flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. And our closing words today from Parker Palmer. Our deepest calling is to grow into our authentic selfhood, whether or not it conforms to some image of who we ought to be. As we do, we will not only find the joy that every human being seeks, we will also find our path of authentic service in the world. So now please join in our closing song, Let There Be Peace on Earth.